Good evening and welcome.
Thanks.
Tonight is Monday, October 28th, 2019. This is the regular city council meeting for the city of St. Peter. It is 7 o'clock p.m. We will call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our October 14th, 2019 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 5 through 8. Are any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next, we'll address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Did you want to speak to, if you, let's see. Yeah, as long as you want to speak on any matter whatsoever, you can come up right now. Please give us your name and your address, and we will go from there.
I'm Rob. I live at 513 Jefferson Avenue.
What was your last name?
Lawson.
Rob Lawson.
Rob Lawson. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What can we do for you?
The city services.
Okay, and this is an issue, why?
Well, I just feel like it's difficult for several people to pay their utilities when they're combined, and then if they have to contend with the shut-off, which is $75, and I believe if it's in the afternoon, it's even more than that. Some people might get into a spiral where they can't exactly get caught up or be able to keep their bill current when they're combined, because the electricity, it makes sense if you don't pay your electric bill that they shut your service off.
Right.
But this is adding like 4 more layers to
Yeah.
the disconnection.
But electricity is one of the, I would think you might feel the same way if we shut your water off too. But
Well, right, but like I said, if I don't pay my water bill, then I expect my water bill to get shut off.
Okay. All right. Todd, do you have anything you want to?
No, it's been the policy for decades of for the council to bill all of the utilities that you provide together. That includes water, sewer, wastewater, stormwater, refuse, environmental services. All of those things have been billed together. Traditionally, for those folks who have struggled to pay, you have a policy related to allowing them to make arrangements to make payment. And so as you see, and as you'll see this evening, we have very few people that can't make an arrangement or fail to live up their arrangement based on the amount that you are looking at, again, in this council packet to assess into the future. So it certainly is at the pleasure of the council whether you want to have a policy or not.
Right.
But having those combined allows for you to help ensure that payment can be made. And we hope to have people come in and talk to us about whatever struggle they might be having. We have other resources, other community organizations that assist people who struggle with their utility bills. And there are rules related to cold weather rules starting in October and other things that are provided for as well.
Have you come in, Rob, at all and talked to the
I have.
finance?
I just feel that there's an excessive amount of, I believe there's a 10% charge to it if you're late a certain amount of time. I mean, there's people where, you know, I understand if you can't pay your bill, everyone expects that you're not going to get a service unless you pay for it. But I do think there's some people that might have extraordinary circumstances, or, you know,
Well,
somebody
that-
loses a
yeah.
job, somebody gets cancer, whatever the
Sure.
case is.
But that would be the point where you need to come in and talk to the finance department. If we're not going to have any, whether it's excessive or not, if we're not going to have any service charges or anything put on it, I'm not sure what the incentive is for anybody to pay their bill. You know, they could just leave it go forever. But-
Well, I don't typically believe that anyone would just let their bill go forever. I don't think that's an accurate statement or a reflection of people in the community. I don't think they're just going
Right.
to let their bill go forever. There might be a few people that do.
But I know I pay mine on the 15th, because if I don't pay it on the 15th, I'm going to be hit with a service charge.
Right.
So I guess we can discuss it. We have a goal-setting session coming up here in 3 weeks or so, and we can discuss it. But I would encourage you that if you have anything like that, go and talk to Sally or to
Well,
her.
it's not specifically about me. My bill's $100 and something. I
Right.
use the least amount of electricity in the entire city. According to my bill, I'm the most efficient resident.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of people, and I know because they showed me a big bucket of people that, I believe you have a public hearing about the assessments as
Right.
well.
Right.
So, I'm not saying that you have to necessarily cut and make it 2 bills, but I think that there's a difference between the services offered and the way that the carrot on the stick is presented,
Okay.
so to speak. So I'm a little tired and I have to wake up at 2 a.m.
The goal setting, I think, would be good. I'd like to understand a little bit better.
Yeah. We will, does anybody else have any questions for Rob?
Not for Rob, but whenever
Okay.
we talk about it.
But we will take it up and address it, and there may be somebody sitting here that has a better idea that we can, when we're in that forum, that we can discuss it and take a look at it.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you
All
for
right.
your time.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
for
sir.
coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't believe I've ever heard that proposed before. I mean, 30 years, I've never, that's an interesting idea.
Well, we will take it up at the goal-setting session.
Yeah.
So we're going to be there another hour longer that night for everybody that wants to join in.
It's okay.
Next, we
A
will
lot of
move
us are
to
leaving.
the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 9 and concludes with the resolution on page 24, and includes the following budgeted items in excess of $10,000 to Eaton Cannon Tech for 300 electric utility meters for $50,490. To Quality Flow for lift station pump repairs for $25,534. The following advisory board appointments: to Civil Service Commission, to Bob Southworth, finishing out the term that ends in this year, and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, to Harry Jennis, which the term runs through December 31st, 2022. The following employee appointments: to Robert Bonnert for part-time bus driver at $16.23 per hour, plus the regular schedule of disbursements for October 10th, 2019 through October 23rd, 2019. Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? Ed?
Todd, on page 15, Fire Protection Services for Gustavus Nobel for $2,900. Do we pay that, or why are we paying?
Tell me what page again, please?
15, right in the
15.
middle. Review drawings.
So that would not be unusual. It is unusual that it's listed for Gustavus. We send out the plans for review of sprinkler systems on buildings that require sprinkler systems. So you might see this kind of bill with this company from time to time. This is just tagged to that large project. There would have been one for the regional treatment center.
I
that's-
guess I just noticed it.
Yeah, and it's
Tagged
paid back to
Gustavus.
us through the building permit process.
That was a major question right
Got
there.
it.
Thank you.
So we're not out that money at all.
You are not out that money. That is part of the building permit that is paid for. We don't have the expertise on staff to review the sprinkler system, so we farm that out, hire that out.
Okay. John?
I guess this is for Public Works. We're buying 300 more smart electric meters for $165 apiece. We'll end up having to buy 4,000, some large number like that. So how far are we in this process?
Come on up, Pete, if you would.
We are about 30% of the way through the process right now. So we'll have about 1,200 meters installed when these are completed. I think we're right around 1,000 now out of 4,000, 4,200 area. So we're making plans to install them as our budget allows. So this was a budgeted process, and these will be delivered in January and installed in January and February.
So far, when we install them, we're just using them the same as we did the dumb meters before. We're not taking advantage yet of all their character abilities.
No, we're actually, what we're doing is we're building a mesh. We have 5 receivers out there, 5 different areas that are tied to fiber. And so what we're doing is building a mesh systematically so that then we can fill in as we need to. We are using those for disconnects in certain areas and load limiting in certain areas and load control in certain areas.
But the providing the information back to the consumer on their electric usage and their time of day usage and all that, that is still a ways in the future.
Right. We haven't made that available yet to customers. It is available on certain buildings at Gustavus through their internal metering, but not through the residential metering yet.
Okay. Steve?
I want to thank Mr. Johnson for the question, because I had the same thing. I was going to ask you, Todd, how often does the Civil Service Commission meet?
I don't have a pat answer for that one. Councilmember Grams, they meet on an as-needed basis. So generally what we see is when there's a resignation and the start of a recruitment process or a hiring process, they will meet, and they're required to meet towards the beginning of the year for their annual organizational meeting.
So is that for all positions, or is that for law enforcement?
Those would be for police officer positions.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, they just met in September to approve the last hire,
Correct.
and then they're meeting this week, this week, yeah?
We really had 2 positions to fill that came up at different times. And so this is the second of those processes. I would anticipate that within the next month, you would see a recommendation for hire in your council agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second it.
Now, any more questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Graham,
Aye.
Councilmember Paris,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Coleman.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have unfinished business, which there is none, so we will move to new business. And the first thing we have is refunding bonds, and I would assume Sally and Todd?
Yeah, we'll let Sally talk about the most of it, and if there are any other questions, we'll try and work together to answer those.
All right. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and City Council, I'm here tonight to ask you to approve the resolution approving the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds. On pages 25 and 26, Shannon Sweeney wrote up a memo giving feedback on background on the refunding. The city is looking to refund 3 bonds. A geo sewer revenue bond that was placed, the 2012A, that is for the water treatment facility. And the bond would not to exceed $1,605,000, and savings would be at least $75,000. The maturity date on that bond is 1/1/2043. The next bond that we're looking at refinancing is the 2013B, which was for 3rd Street improvements. Again, not to exceed $720,000. Savings on this will be at least $20,000, and maturity on this is 2/1/2033. And the final one is a municipal state aid, and that was for the Washington Avenue Link project, placed in 2013. And that is not to exceed $2,960,000. $2,960,000. Savings of at least $60,000, and maturity on that bond is February 1st of 2028. Total savings after all expenses have been paid, that's including the payments we make to the bond council, would be at least $155,000. Of all 3 bonds, the end date does not change. So we're not extending the length of this in the refinancing process. All the bonds will come mature at the dates that they're due today. If savings are not achieved due to interest rates, we would not, the only money that the city would lose is we're going out for a bond rating with S&P, and that would be $14,000 is what we could possibly lose if we don't refinance these. But that $14,000 is calculated into $155,000 savings, so. We're engaging R.W. Baird to negotiate the bond sales, and secure the credit rating from S&P, and David Drown and Associates will negotiate on behalf of the city. Asking for approval of the resolution on page 27. The only thing that I have in that resolution is some modifications to items 4 and 6, removing the word interim city administrator from the, so anyway, so that's the only thing that I'm looking at changing.
Shannon did maybe talk to Jerry in
Yeah,
advance.
I didn't know, and then they handed out his summary, and I'm like, whoa. But anyway, so yes, asking for approval on page 27 to proceed.
All right. Questions? Roger?
You said that the savings are 155,000, but what's in our packet and what we were presented show 224,000 savings.
That's net present value, so if you actually looked at it, these are the savings that would be on each of the individual bonds. So it's taking the net present value would be 255,000 in
Right.
today's money.
Okay. So where do we get the 155 from?
Well, the conservatively, Shannon put in that it'd be 75,000 on the first one, would be the net savings, and then 20,000 on the 2013B, and another 60,000 on the 2013C.
So he put that in the resolution text, but not in the
Yes.
memo.
Actually, Roger, it is in the memo on page 26, on the second page of that. And what we're really establishing with this is a threshold. So it could be more than that, but the work here is to establish a threshold. And as we discussed at the workshop, this is a little bit different than what you might normally see with a bond issue, in that it allows the mayor and city administrator, based on the negotiation, to trigger when we have a better interest rate. So we could be more, and there'll be a final report that comes back to the council, but you're essentially setting the minimum or the threshold for sale. We got to make some savings on this. We aren't just doing it to do it.
Right. I guess I don't understand why put the two as different amounts.
Well, Shannon prefers, and we appreciate him doing a calculation both on the net present value and the future value. And so, again, that's establishing what that threshold is in today's dollars.
Okay.
Steve?
I'm sorry I wasn't at the workshop last Monday, but I have a question. What would be the difference between the present interest rate and the potential future interest rate that would trigger that sale where we would want to refinance?
So it will be a little bit different on each of these issuances.
Okay.
And so, again, we're establishing that target, and give me just a second here. If I have the right documentation with me, give me a moment to look.
Am I asking the question correctly? Is that
You are asking a very reasonable question. However, frankly, I am not looking at the interest rates.
Okay.
I am looking at the amount of raw dollars you will save. And that certainly translates into an interest rate, but as we've articulated and Shannon's articulated in the memo on page 25 and 26, our focus point is on saving you dollars.
Okay.
And again, that does translate into an interest rate. It's just not a number that I retain normally.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of when you talk about refinancing a house, there's a certain spread.
Right.
And if you don't have that spread, it's not worth it.
Right,
You know,
and so this has that as well, but we articulate it in the form of dollars,
Oh, okay.
not interest rate.
All right, well, then it doesn't matter. I don't-
It would be akin though to a mortgage where my mortgage was $1,100 and now it's going to go down to $950.
Okay.
And then you're saving that $150 over the next 15 years or 20
Right,
years or whatever's left of your mortgage.
I believe Shannon, I can't remember if he gave a specific number, but, this changes daily. So, whenever it gets locked in, that would be what the established rate is. And as Sally said before, if it goes the other way, then we're not going to do it.
So do they have a computer program that watches the daily rates and then they try to lock in at a certain time?
Yeah,
or-
the companies they work with, the BARD or whatever, they take care of all this.
Okay. All right, thanks. Yeah.
And the other thing on page 25 that Shannon had pointed out, what you're trying to do is get at least right around 2.5 to or higher % on the refunded principal.
Okay,
So all of these are right in there. The last one is like 2.8, which is on the cusp of, but it's an $81,000 savings.
Right.
So on the dollar amount
Yep.
that's available. So that's
Okay.
what your rule of thumb of what you usually want to go for.
All right.
Is between 2.5 or higher, closer to 3 probably.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think he said 3.
Yeah, 3 probably.
all right. Thank you.
And so that's what we'll be watching.
Okay.
For people watching, GO was said, GO is general
General
obligation bond. And the $155,000 savings, we know, I guess, but that is over the term of the bonds. It's not an annual savings. So people know that.
And the term of the bonds do not change.
Right.
That's
Right.
another one. We're not extending our payments out another 10 years to get this or anything.
All right, any other questions? Sally said, the resolution approving the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds appears on page 27. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor and member, just as a point of clarification, and it's ironic that I'm saying this, on interim, it would not be
Oh, yes,
included.
sorry.
Assuming that the memo provides for that. Just got to make sure it's right.
The amended resolution.
Yep. I'll make the motion with the amended resolution. Amended in the resolution.
Removing interim in the 4 and 6. Any other comments, questions, or notices? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Paris?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Zinman?
Aye.
Councilmember Quaney?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
All right.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a revolving loan request. Russ?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the EDA has received an application for a Central Business District renovation accessibility loan from Keith and Carolyn Stelter, who own the real estate at 213 South Minnesota Avenue. The property is owned by an LLC, K&C Stelter Business LLC, that the Stelters wholly own, and then they also operate the Fair Emporium, their retail establishment, which then is a tenant of K&C Stelter Business LLC. In 2014, the Stelters received a similar loan to assist with the renovation of the facade of the Fair Emporium as they opened. As you'll recall, it had an ill-conceived cedar shake awning that was from the 50s, 60s that certainly didn't reflect the history or meet any of the regulations of the HPC. That loan was provided prior to the program establishing any forgivability, so the Stelters did repay the loan in full at the 0% rate of interest, and their repayment record was spotless and absolutely perfect according to the promissory note.
Russ, can I stop you? I don't know whose microphone it is getting tapped or something or other. I'm hearing some feedback. Is that yours, Steve? No?
No, mine's off right now.
Oh, I don't. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. At this time, the building needs a roof replacement.
It's yours, Russ.
It is mine?
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, the building needs a complete roof replacement and the installation of insulation due to significant ice dam, which then causes water penetration into the inside of the structure. To remedy the situation, the Stelters have received 2 quotes. The first one for Ballman Roofing in the amount of $55,310, and a second quote from Cato Roofing in the amount of $45,780. If you were to approve the loan, the Stelters would receive $25,000 from the established loan program, and they have demonstrated evidence that they have $20,780 or the balance on deposit in liquid for their access. The financials of Stelters and the K&C Stelter Business LLC were reviewed by myself, Corey Abels, and Mike Favor as the subcommittee of the EDA. Again, we confirmed that the Stelter share of the project funding was on deposit. We found nothing to suggest that there would be any additional risk to making the loan, and I would classify the financials of the Stelters and of the business as being very solid. Mr. Mayor, the EDA had considered the matter at their last special meeting, and they have recommended approval of a $25,000 loan from the Central Business District Renovation Accessibility Improvement Program. That would establish a monthly payment of $208.33 months over the 10-year amortization period. And in this instance, when the note is successfully retired to a balance of $5,000, the last $5,000 would be forgiven. It would be secured by a promissory note and a mortgage. A review at the courthouse suggests that there is a previous recorded mortgage in the amount of $120,000 that was provided when the Stelters acquired the property in 2014. That was renewed and extended in 2017 with a balance of roughly $108,000. If the city were to record the $25,000 mortgage on top of those, there'd be a total of $165,000 mortgaged, but a real exposure of less than that, given that the $120 had been paid down. So it does fall all within the guidelines established by the council for that particular loan program. And Mr. Mayor, I'd answer any questions that you or members of the city council would have of me.
Questions? Russ, maybe I'm missing it in here, but didn't they have a loan through the EDA before?
Yes, they did. That was the 2014 loan. And
Okay.
and that was repaid in full, according to the promissory note.
All right.
But that was prior to the forgivability, so they repaid that entire note in full.
I thought they had, but I didn't, maybe I missed it reading it in here, that hadn't paid off. Any other questions? Steve?
I just have one, and it really isn't relative to this loan, but if their roof is bad, would the roof on either side also potentially be bad?
Not
You know?
necessarily.
Okay, I mean, how can they separate? When I go downtown and look at the buildings, and they just butt right up to each other. How can the
There's
building?
there's parapet walls on some of these buildings
Is there?
that they don't run into each other.
Okay.
Maybe a gully or some kind of a drainage system.
The only situation would be a large building like the Masons Building that has Nutters and Cooks and
Right.
Company and multiple operating entities within it, but most of them, as the mayor said, have separate membranes for their own roof. and
Okay.
They're very independent.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Not, the resolution approving a $25,000 Central Business District renovation loan to Keith and Carolyn Stelter for address at 213 South Minnesota Avenue appears on pages 30 and 31. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Quona?
Aye.
Councilmember Favor?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Garris?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thanks, Russ. Next up, we have the Complete Count Committee for the 2020 census. Todd?
Mayor, members, as you know, we have an intern that's been working on this project, Connor Winter, and Connor's out in the audience tonight, and so he's here to back me up in case I need a lifeline call. But we're really looking to establish, or have you take action to establish, a complete count committee within the city of St. Peter. As you know, the decennial census will start in April of 2020, and St. Peter has, in the past, historically had a few populations that appear to be undercounted, and so we're recommending the establishment of a complete count committee. The goal of the Complete Count Committee is really threefold, one of which is to increase the response for residents that participate in the 2020 census overall. As you know, and as Connor's articulated to you in the past, for every person that we don't count over the next 10 years, that could mean in excess of $15,000 in resources that don't come to your community for lots of different things. It could be roads, it could be economic development programs, it could be lots of different things. So it's important that we get people counted. It's also important that we use the local knowledge that we have, the local folks, to make sure that we're hitting populations that may have traditionally not been comfortable in reporting, and help them understand the value of reporting and provide information to them to understand the utilization of the data. And then, again, continuing to develop ways to meet those hard-to-reach folks. This is an effort that is being promoted by the state of Minnesota, and we would be part of it, along with many, many other cities, and some counties are establishing complete count committees. Our goal is to meet 3 or 4 times over the next few months prior to April of 2020, and maybe going into April of 2020 if we need to, but working to make sure we distribute information and equip folks so that they can speak within their communities about the value of census. As the council's talked before, and as recommended before, we're looking to establish a committee of about 8 members, and we'll establish a process for people to send an email in that talks about their name, their address, their phone number, why they might be a great representative of a community within our community, and help spread the word about the value of census. And so that resolution doing that is on page 34. My hope would be is that we'd have kind of a relatively short interest period when folks can express interest, and that hopefully at the next council meeting, if not in your December council meeting, or the end of November, we'd come forward with names using your regular appointment process, which is essentially the mayor recommends to city council the appointment of members to this group. At the end of this, so April, May of 2020, this group would stop, would cease to exist. So it's a relatively short-term committee, but certainly can have great impact. And we need help within the community to make sure people know the value of census.
Questions? Steve?
I'm sorry, I don't remember the young man's name that we're so fortunate to have work with us, but is there a process that this young gentleman is looking at? I mean, a process for approaching folks?
So Connor and I will work together. We have some folks within our community that we rely on within some of the subsets within our community to get information. And so we'll solicit them or ask if they have suggestions. And so frankly, we're looking at the Somali community and Latinx community to ensure that information gets out. And so we have some folks that participate in hashtag Our St. Peter and other groups that will rely on to help us find. And then we'll take emails or letters of interest, people who might just want to serve. And that's fantastic too, and kind of sort those out and come to you with a list that we hope can work out well.
Okay, thank you.
Remembering you cannot be an elected official and be on this committee? Isn't that correct?
I got to tell you, I don't know the answer to that, Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
pretty sure that we had the guy from the state speak at Region 9, and that was one of the points that was raised. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember coming out of there. And another reason for having an accurate count, or hopefully a good count, is Minnesota is right on the border again of maybe losing a representative from the national level. So the more people we have, the better off we are. So.
Mayor, remembers the resolutions on page 34, which establishes the committee, sets the number of minutes, and says that you're going to follow the normal process that you use for board and commission appointments as a part of this.
Another thing that they pointed out that night, I don't know how many communities are there in Minnesota, I should know, but I don't. But I think he at that time said there was 84 that had signed up for this.
I think that sounds within the basket of my understanding as well, but I expect over the next month or two, there'll be
Yep.
quite a few more.
Yep.
Most folks are kind of getting geared up right now.
Okay. The resolution establishing the Census 20 Complete Count Committee appears on page 34. Is there a motion for approval?
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one more.
Steve.
I just have a question. Todd, is there going to be some type of a way of appreciating the work of these folks when that committee is finished with their duties?
Certainly, from a staff perspective, we'd be open to suggestion and idea.
Okay.
I do anticipate spending a relatively few dollars when we have meetings. Maybe we're buying a pizza or something like that. But as far as something that's more official than that, we had not planned anything, Steve.
Okay.
But we're open to suggestion for
All
sure.
right. Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Conley.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Paris.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the assessment of unpaid unpaid miscellaneous charges. First. The other way around? Unpaid, well, those are unpaid, the later pages.
We'd like to do utilities first.
Oh, okay. We're going to go by the agenda. Even though the pages are not accurate. So the unpaid utility charges. Sally again, thank you.
Yes. Mayor and City Council, fall has approached, so we're here for setting up preparation for assessments, both for utilities and for miscellaneous charges. So on page 35 and 30 through 37, we're asking to have you approve ordering the preparation of unpaid utility charges and the calling for a public hearing for those unpaid utility charges on November 25th at 7 p.m. On page 35, I have a list of our delinquent accounts, and as you can see, there's 36 delinquent accounts on sales of $19.6 million. Assessable charges that we'll be assessing is $4,938.55. Unassessable charges are $15,593.15. The unassessable charges are basically utilities, electric really, that you can't assess to if they're a tenant and they leave, you can't assess that to the property owner, but you can water, sewer, environmental service, and refuse. So that's the larger portion, but of that $15,593.15, $9,880.82 was due to a bankruptcy of Shopko. So that number fluctuates quite a bit. If somebody goes bankrupt, you cannot assess that, even to the business that went bankrupt. So overall, if you back that out, we were unassessable is down to $5,712.33, or 0.029%. We will continue to try and collect these by sending them to collections, and then as people come in, if it's tenants, we keep notes on the accounts and we try and collect them before they set up their next rental or agreements out there. The finance team does do a good job at collecting past due utility bills. On page 44, we've sort of got the resolutions out of order. Page 44 is the resolution asking us to prepare the special assessments. And then we will prepare them, we will send out letters by November 4th to all the people that owe the money. We'll put public hearing notices in the Herald on November 7th and 14th, and then we'll certify it, and then they'll have till mid-December to pay those in full at our office. The ones that don't get paid in full, we'll assess to the county, and then they'll put on their property taxes for next year. So we're asking you to approve the resolutions on pages 44 and 45.
Questions? Jim, as Shopko, have they filed bankruptcy?
Yeah, they filed, we've put claims in for them, so we've done what we could do.
You've done that already?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
done all that.
All right.
Yeah,
And we're way down on the list on collectability.
Yeah, I would imagine, but at least it's on record.
Right, yep.
we did do the filing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? First resolution calling for a public hearing declaring unpaid charges for municipal utilities to be assessed is on page 44. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Bart.
Councilmember Koenig.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Councilmember Paris.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. Resolution is approved. Next, we have the resolution on page 45 calling for a public hearing declaring unpaid charges for municipal utilities to be assessed. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any questions, comments? Call the roll, please, Bart.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Councilmember Paris.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Koenig.
Aye.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Sally, do you want to tell us anything about the next one then, or do we?
Yep. We're on the next one on page 40.
Yep.
I'm here for the miscellaneous charges and for projects that were done in the city throughout 2019. Again, there are two resolutions, one asking to prep the assessments for the project and miscellaneous charges, and then again, the public hearing would be on November 25th at 7 p.m. is the second resolution. Background, we have some miscellaneous charges for lawn mowing and snow removal and driveway repair. And then we also have all the projects that were done on 3rd Street and for curb and gutter and basically curb and gutter for the properties listed. And there's one change on page 43. The first one for June Hoffman, we got the final bill in this morning. So instead of $13,428, it'll be $14,265.31. So the total assessments will be $149,935.04. So we added the administrative fee, and the work was up about $150 from what we had estimated. So we'll have a public hearing on November 25th, and then we'll also be sending letters out to all these homeowners by November 4th, and then they have till mid-December to pay in full at the office. If they don't, we will assess it to the county on December 26th. We'll certify it and have them charged at that point.
Okay. Questions? John?
I've seen a lot of lawn mowing and snow removals. I've never seen driveway patching. Why do we care if he has a hole in his driveway?
It wasn't a driveway patch, it was work that was done last year, and they needed to have some blacktop done, and their contractor didn't have it, so they asked us to have them come and finish that off.
So it really belonged in the other list, the accessible ones that we'd made arrangements with.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, it's an agreed to amount, John.
Yes.
it's agreeing to an amount to do that for him,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. Not all of these are delinquents. Many of these
Yes.
are following the process to assess according to an agreement with the property owner.
Well, she's got two lists, one of the delinquencies included in that one, and it shouldn't have been, or should have been in the other one. On
Steve?
page 40.
How long does the homeowners have to pay this off?
It depends on the dollar amount,
Oh, get that,
so it
okay.
can go anywhere from 1 year to 15, depends on the dollar amount.
All right,
The
thank you.
council has a policy established based on those dollar thresholds.
Yeah, I have that at home, but I just don't recall.
Yeah, and each bracket has a different
Right.
one, and then there's a different interest rate assigned per the number of years.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Sally, just a note, you had said you'd send notices out to the homeowners, just so people know there are things on here other than homeowners. There are
Yes.
businesses on here,
Yes,
too.
business and homeowners, too.
Any other questions or comments? If not, the resolution declaring unpaid charges to be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessment of miscellaneous charges appears on page 38. Is there a motion for approval?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any questions now? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grahams,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cornell,
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have the resolution calling for the public hearing on assessment of miscellaneous charges. That appears on page 39. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Any questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cornell.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Grahams.
Aye.
That resolution is approved. Next up, we have the, thank you, Sally, 2021 legal services contract. Todd and Jim?
Mayor and members, this is mine to cover. This is a contract with Jim Brandt and other attorneys to provide city attorney services. All those attorneys are employed through the Farish Johnson Law Firm. The Finance Committee that traditionally meets on this issue did meet and has recommended moving forward with this contract that provides a designation of 4 attorneys to do this type of work for you. First is James Brandt as the city attorney. Christopher Gann has the assistant city attorney. Joseph Gainey as the assistant city attorney, and Paul Moosberger as an assistant city attorney. It's the Finance Committee's recommendation, and based on their discussion, the reason that we have other folks involved in this, more than the usual 2 or 3 that we have, is to ensure that we have backup. This does not, we do not anticipate a change in the workload substantially, but as we see other activities happen, it's nice to have other folks that have some understanding of your processes and how you want to move forward with prosecutions, and a lot of this is in the prosecutory area. There's a change in contract of approximately $5 per hour for each of these levels of attorney, again, city attorney and assistant city attorney, and the information is included in your packet starting on page 50 through 57, with the resolution providing for the appointments and the approval of the contract on page 58. Or, I'm sorry, it's not page 58. It is
54.
page 54, thank you.
Questions? The attorney that's present stated that one of the reasons, or the main reason, that they had an increase in their rates had to do with the same thing we're dealing with as a city. There was an increase in their health benefits costs. So that was the justification for that, if anybody's wondering. If there are no other questions, the resolution approving execution of the 2020-2021 legal services contract appears on page 54. Is there a motion for approval?
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please, Barbara.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Zimmerman?
Aye.
Councilmember Horn?
Aye.
Councilmember Hyder?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Bear?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. And thank you, Jim, and your staff. Next up, we have the agreement for refuse and recycling collection modification. Todd?
Mayor members, this starts on page 55 within your packet, and you've talked about this a number of different times. So I don't, if you want me to go through the entire history of this, I certainly can. But what is in front of you is a modification to the contract that you currently have in place. There are two primary issues related to the modification that will take you through 2023. The first modification is to move recycling from an every week pickup back to an every other week pickup. The second modification is to go from 120-day termination by either party to 180-day termination by either party. Mayor members, again, you've talked about this a number of different times. There are a number of different ways that you can approach the issue that you're facing. You don't have to take action. You could wait. You have not received notice on termination within this contract from the service provider, so it is something that you can do to wait. I think the memos that we provided have provided a half a dozen different options, and certainly there are more, but primary options. The information is included in your packet, Mayor members.
Todd, I guess I'm going to ask you to, because, you know, we've gone over it, but
Sure.
people haven't really, I think there was an article on it in the Herald, but not everybody reads the Herald either. Just like not everybody watches this, so.
So,
They don't.
this is premised on a couple of different issues, one of which is, as we've talked about previously, international geopolitical affairs and the impact that our changing ability to send recyclables to China has had here locally. That has created a marketplace where a year or 2 or 3 years ago, recycling that was picked up here by local, at your home, as an example, had some value where recyclers would pay for glass or plastic or paper if it was of sufficient quality and quantity. Now what we see within that marketplace is an increased cost in that you're not only picking up the recycling, but you're paying recyclers to take it, where before they might pay you a few dollars here or there. Now you're paying them to take it to the tune of tens of dollars up to $50 per ton for those materials. So that has changed the marketplace related to costs associated with recycling. Your contractor has come forward and said they do not want to withstand the economic changes that cost increase has brought on. Their contract really clearly is that they own those recycling materials when they pick them up from your home. And so they have asked for a modification to contract. As you know, we've had positive discussion with your contractor and have looked for ways more in a problem-solving mode of trying to find efficiencies in system. Moving to every other week saves about $25,000 per year in employee costs, diesel fuel, and other things.
To the carrier.
To the carrier. And the council has said very clearly that you didn't want to provide for an increase to your customer base if your contract increased. So we worked really diligently to kind of find some middle ground rather than be in the position of you either providing notice to the contractor or the contractor providing that 120 days notice to you. You can certainly do that, but you've given me some direction, and I've tried to work within that framework to find a solution that maintains recycling on a consistent basis. We have had, at least from my chair, and I think from Finance Department chair, who really deal with problems related to recycling or refuse collection. We've had good service from this contractor. And so what you see in front of you is a negotiated way to continue the contract, stay with this provider, and still provide the opportunity for residents within your community to have refuse and recycling services that I hope can work well for them.
Yeah, I think.
It is a reduction in services.
Yeah, it's a reduction in services, but it would also if we would have maintained services and they would have discontinued the contract, we'd gone out for bids,
You never know.
the cost more than likely would be increased quite a bit, not just from them, but they come from the
Yeah,
competitive bids.
all of the recyclers within our area are facing this same challenge. And frankly, the recycler companies that provide services in places like Mankato and North Mankato and Nicollet, they're facing these same challenges. Most recycling in our area goes to the same location. And so they're facing this as well.
One of the things, too, that was a deciding factor for me was, on this and on doing it this way, was the increase in our recycling has, since we've gone to the weekly recycling, has not gone up, the amount of tonnage that has gone. So here we are running an extra truck, having some kind of an environmental impact, maybe not a lot, but, stopping every 100 feet, where to pick up recycling, where it hasn't changed any. So, there's kind of a trade-off and there's a gain to be had there too. I don't like reducing services, but like I say, in the long run, I think this is probably the best thing for us at this point.
Mr. Mayor, could I add on to that
Sure.
just a little bit? I think the challenge that we see relative to recycling weights is that many households have had a change in their lifestyle and the materials that come into their home. Let me use a great example. 5 years ago, lots of people received newspapers, and so you received the newspaper at your home. It was thrown on your doorstep in the morning, and now, although we still see some of that, my guess is that the vast majority of people within our community now get their newspaper online. They read it online. So that material that did come to your household that was thrown into the recycling is no longer in system. So your recycling weights haven't changed, and I think the mayor's point is very valid, but it's probably even more valid related to the refuse numbers. Our goal in going to every week recycling was to, yes, see our recycling numbers go up, but frankly, more importantly, see our refuse numbers, our garbage numbers go down. And that hasn't happened either. And so we're in this kind of quandary related to what's going on within households within our community, how people recycling, are they recycling in a quality way with materials that we can recycle, and what are we doing relative to refuse within our community? And that's been some of the response with food waste and some other things that you're experimenting with. So it's on both sides of the equation, although most of this discussion has been about that recycling cost because of the price changes within the marketplace that have driven it.
Jerry?
Inasmuch as this takes place on the 1st of December, will there be a flyer going out with the utility bills next month telling which is the starting date for the biweekly?
Yes, so Jerry, we'll be able to put that out in the next utility bill that goes out. We'll have it in the hot sheet, it'll be on Facebook, we'll use all of those means. Let me tell you from a staff perspective how we've looked at this. This means that while the change takes place the 1st of December, the first day without service of recycling starts on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of December. So service will occur that first week, and then the second week is when service will be different. We expect that we will get some phone calls, but the recycling is very different than garbage not getting picked up. And so for people that might not be aware, they'll call and say, well, nobody got my recycling. We'll say, well, there was a change. And so you can set it out next week or on every other week. And we will have schedules that go out. Our website will be modified to provide for that information. So we'll do what we can to make sure that people know.
Well, you got a 50-50 chance of hitting it right the first
Yeah, I guess that's right, Jerry.
Another thing too, and hope it's a little inconvenient, but there are, 3 drop-offs around town where you can take your recycling if you do have excess?
There are other drop-off sites that can be utilized, and so we encourage people to utilize those currently. Those are paid for by the tax assessment that the county puts on all of our parcels, the $21. And they're really great for cardboard. They are fantastic for large cardboard, and as we get into the holiday season with gifts and giving and other things, that's a great place for that cardboard to go for sure.
John?
So there's just cardboard recycling, there's not mixed recycling?
There is mixed recycling there as well,
And
but it
where
works
is-
really
where-
slick for cardboard.
And where is this there?
So at the county shed off Sunrise, the county public works department, and at our compost facility located at the corner of Sunrise and Swift are the 2 primary areas.
St. Julian.
Or, I'm sorry, did I say Swift? St. Julian, thanks, Barb. Swift and St. Julian.
Where's the, isn't there another one?
There used to be a third one at the fairgrounds. There used to be, but that has not been in place for a little
Okay.
while now.
Alright.
So those two primary locations.
So instead of 3, 2. And they can be full at times. I know I've used them for, like you say, the big cardboard and other things.
Yeah. And one more question.
Steve?
Residents can ask for another container for the recycling, can't they?
And
if
our goal
necessary?
will be to look at what their utilization is and determine whether one is necessary. I mean, one of the challenge that we had in going from every other week to every week is that we do have some families that at that time were using 2. With changes in marketplace, with change in his lifestyle, with changes in materials that come into our home, we'll see what level of necessity there is in that.
Okay.
But just like garbage or refuse dumpsters, they're two different, aren't there not 2 different sizes of recycling dumpsters?
Actually,
also?
with recycling, there's just the one.
Really?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Our neighbors look smaller than mine does.
Well, just to be clear, you have 2 different size Kirby's for refuse, essentially a 60 or a 64
Right.
and a 90 and a 94. The recycling is the 60-64 version of that.
Right.
Maybe it's just the color lid, unless you,
No, I mean,
unless there's an unusual one out there. There could be an unusual one, I suppose.
Could be. It just seems smaller. But anyway.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? The resolution authorizing execution of the Second Amendment to Agreement for Refuse and Recycling Collection between the city and LJP appears on page 58. Is there a motion for approval?
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Conlon.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Paris.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a Veterans Memorial Park playground purchase. And Mr. Moulton.
Mayor Zeman and City Council, here tonight to let you know that we did receive a grant for some of the playground equipment that we're looking at purchasing this year. As you're aware, the Parks Advisory Board has been working with staff on prioritizing the increase in parks funding availability. We did examine and prioritize 5 different areas over the course of the last few months here. Those are listed on page 59, and they include playground equipment for the 2020 year, parks, trails, and sidewalks for the 21 year, shade structures and passive picnic areas for 22, sports activities for 23, lighting and scoreboards for 24. Out of those areas, we focused heavily on the playground equipment area. And from that area, working with our landscape architect, Damon Farber, we were able to break down and price out some of our needs for 5 main areas. Now, while that totals $680,000, our goal would be to focus on the top priority, which is Veterans Park Playground. And that breakdown is on the colored map that you have, or the black and white map if you're in the packet there, that Todd has up on the board there. If you look at the upper left corner there, you can see the scope of work that we are working under is the $140,000. On our first pass at $140,000 for the playground, Veterans Playground area, we were not able to look at composite structures because the structures that we wanted to put there would price us at about $190,000 to $200,000. Since we didn't have that funding available, we scoped back and started looking at piecing some equipment in there over the period of the next few years and reprioritizing where we would put playground equipment. In working with several grant opportunities, one of which we were successful, Game Time stepped forward and offered us a grant of about $50,000, which would put us right at the $140,000. Now, the $140,000 that you're seeing up there for a cost estimate is inclusive of us doing the demolition, preparing the site, getting the concrete work in there, hauling the P-rock out, and getting the site all prepped for them to come in, put the playground equipment in there. The 140 does include their numbers as well, which if you turn onto page 60, you will see 2 charts. Both of those charts include the purchase of the equipment itemized out for you and the additional items that we will complete next year. Our total expenditures with Game Time will be about $98,941. But we've had multiple areas that we've evaluated, and what we're looking at is getting Game Time on track to order the equipment because of the lead time that we need to have it ordered for and get it in here. We will also continue to work with Damon Farber on finalizing and laying out the detail for both the 2 to 5, which is on the left side of your screen up there, and the 5 to 12 area. One thing I can tell you about the layout as you see it up here, I want to take note on is the play mound, the turf mound that's in there as a divider right now is not funded. That's about $22,000. So we didn't quite have enough funds to do everything on that layout. We could do that at a future time. Or if we can efficiently get demolition and clearing accomplished minimally, we may have enough money to do that mound. And so what we're looking for is hopefully some cost savings this year. Hopefully the weather holds and our staff can go in and do some work there. One of the things I wanted to recognize was the staff at Public Works to keep applying for grants and keep trying to obtain money to make this work. They did a nice job. That $50,000 is really what makes this work. It does make it complete. Damon Farber, our architect, has worked with CAD drawings back and forth the last 2 weeks, extensive hours trying to make everything fit and work, and then working with Game Time in order to get the grant to be fully utilized. So with this, I'm asking that you approve the resolution on page 64 and authorize staff to go forward with the completion of the installation and ordering of the equipment.
Questions? Steve?
I just have one, I guess I should address it to Pete or you, Todd, but on page 19 of the accounts payable list, there's a payment to Minnesota Playground. Is that the equipment? Okay.
That is,
So this, the company that you're working with, they're the manufacturer?
they are.
Okay, all right. That answered my question.
Yep.
Thanks, Pete.
Anyone else? Roger?
So you said the mound was not included in this
The
140?
mound is not, yes. We have a $140,000 cap, and that is our intention, is to stay within that. If we can somehow get the demolition completed a little cheaper than what we think it'll take, we'll try to include the mound possibly as an alternate when we bid some of the other work there to get things done.
The install's at 31,000?
Yes,
Is that for the ADA surface
that is for the surface as well, yes.
and the concrete work?
Yep. Concrete work will be done separately, but it has to be done before that work. That's part of the hardscapes number up there that you're seeing. That includes the concrete buffer.
The plaza, as it's written here?
Yeah. Hardscape is the third line down. That's the concrete barrier that you're seeing around there that would contain that.
But it's that dark area on the map or the image that says Plaza, Roger, that's correct.
Right.
Pete, could you explain to me this grant? The grant's coming from this Game Time? Mm-hmm. And they're the manufacturer?
Of the equipment.
So the grant, in essence, is it just a reduction in their pricing?
It is.
That's all it
It's
is.
based on how much you order. And so we talked through the project with them, and we had originally priced out some equipment, and then they didn't hear from us because that equipment would have been around $106,000. And we worked backwards. They weren't aware that we had a $140,000 cap. And usually this time of year, similar to how when we purchased Traverse Green equipment, companies like this have additional playground equipment that they're willing to move at a reduced price. And so they called us back and said, and we had made an application, and they had said, yes, we can fund some of that for you.
So let me, if I understand, so you just a piece of paper saying, hey,
No,
can
we
you
had
do
to make
better,
an
or how?
application. We made an application.
Okay,
Yeah,
They have a grant program.
they do.
Yeah.
But I think Chuck, it is just as easy to think of it as a discount
Right.
program.
Right.
So you give them your coupon and they,
Well,
Yep.
yeah, basically.
We had told them what equipment we were
Right.
interested in.
I just, the word grant from a company that's, private
Yep.
company trying to make money, just kind of,
that's what they call it.
Yeah.
okay,
Menards does rebates.
yeah.
It's not a rebate.
Anyway, any other questions? Steve?
Pete, I'm kind of directionally challenged, but where would this new playground area be located at the swimming pool?
Sure, it would be directly outside the pool access doors. So if you
Okay.
see the sidewalk, it says to the wading pool right there.
Yes.
When you come out of the wading pool, you will walk right into the 2 to 5-year-old playground area.
Okay.
If you come directly outside the pool entrance, you will go to the 5 to 12 area. There'll be a little, that darker area that Roger was talking about, that'll be either a colored or a stamped concrete. It'll tie into playground on one level to the sidewalk area that we completed a couple years ago.
So the older playground on the south side of the pool will be,
Gone.
okay, filled in with grass or whatever?
Right, and the equipment that's there now was part of the preliminary process. That'll be removed as well and repurposed somewhere in one of our other parks.
Okay. I really think this really looks great, Pete, so, yeah, thank you.
Mayor, members, the other thing that I'd like to mention in relation to this is that it's important to note that this $140,000 is money that you budgeted for the 2020 year. And so when you do your audit, when your expenditures and your revenues come back, this will show in the 2019 year that you have exceeded your budget, but that will come out in the wash essentially in 2020. And for a grant program or a discount of this level, this is one of the reasons that you keep reserves, is to be able to take advantage of these kind of things.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? The resolution authorizing purchase of new playground equipment for Veterans Memorial Park appears on page 64. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Quinn.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Paris.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
All right.
Mayor Zimmerman.
Aye. Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports, and I think most of them that I kind of had on my list, but Todd's got, so I'm going to just give it over to you, Todd.
Mayor, members, I'll count on some of the staff to help us with this, so I have asked Russ to be here to talk a little bit about the state commissioner's tour. Mayor was there, we had a number of folks from our community. Russ, we had a number of state commissioners there. Can you just talk a little bit about that and the couple presentations that occurred?
Yeah, this was last Wednesday over the lunch hour. We had the opportunity to host a lunch with 8 state commissioners, everybody except the IRRB, so I don't think he gets off the Iron Range much. But they run a bus tour of southern Minnesota with stops in Shakopee, Le Sueur, lunch here, and then they went to Waseca, overnighted in Mankato. The next morning they went down to Fairmont, to Jackson, to Windham, to Gaylord, and then back to St. Paul. They were touting the One Minnesota process. That's the thought where, say you're looking to start a business, you're an entrepreneur, and you make contact with the Department of Employment and Economic Development. Well, they will seamlessly then get you contacts with the Department of Revenue, the Department of Labor and Industry, and all of the applicable state departments that you would have to work with, rather than you just going in and making cold calls to all these different departments. And so they're putting together a team trying to increase the customer satisfaction of their services. It included the Commissioner Anderson Keller, Gustavus graduate, the Commissioner of MnDOT, the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue, Minnesota Pollution Control, Department of Employment and Economic Development, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Natural Resources, and then the Bureau of Labor and Industries. So there are 8 commissioners, each brought 2 or 3 staff persons. Then, as Mr. Prafke said, we augmented their roster with some local invitees, including representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, the St. Peter Development Corporation, the Economic Development Authority. We invited County Commissioners Drantle and Morrow, who represent the St. Peter area, Representative Gustavus, the Art Center, Regional Treatment Center. We had about a total of 60 people. We had an hour and a half. They showed up about 5 minutes late, but we were able then to put together 2 panel presentations. One was representatives of Creation Technology, along with Muhammad Abdul Qadir from the St. Peter Islamic Center, who was actually working in his capacity as a consultant with the MRCI out of Mankato, where he helps with refugee settlement. They spoke about the incredible growth that Creation has had since we helped them relocate out into the industrial park, and then some of the challenges that they faced with that growth and trying to fill positions. And so they worked with Muhammad Abdul Qadir as well as Abdi Matan to reach out to the East African community. And they are very proud to say that at this time they're almost 1/3 East African in their labor force, and it's really allowed them then to maintain the productivity and to deliver orders that keeps the St. Peter up and running very well. The second panel then was Mr. Reeser, Ms. Lilienthal, and Sam Ziegler from Green Seam that spoke about the Ag Academy that the schools put together and some of the incredible things that they are doing. And then Mr. Ziegler spoke about somewhat the greater ag economy in the area, and then what opportunities lie for these children, students, after they get out of the high school ag academy. Feedback I got from the state, the event planners was we exceeded their expectations, which we always try to do. But I thought it was a great event, and we got to break bread with some of the folks from the state, got to make introductions, and hopefully when they hear about St. Peter up in the Capitol or in their offices, they're very familiar with what we've got going on. So I'd ask any questions you might have. We missed you if you weren't there.
Questions, Russ?
Great programs, great partners. You have a strong, high level of credibility with many of these groups. And so it's wonderful that they stop here and see some of the unique things that you're doing within the community. The next one that we have is City School Committee meeting. A couple of the members were at that. This is a liaison committee meeting where we try and meet a couple times a year. It's been quite a while since this committee's met, maybe more than a year and a half. And so I thought great discussion. I'd defer to any of the members that were present if they have any questions or comments, or I can talk about a few of the issues that were discussed there.
John?
Well, we talked a lot about Community Spirit Park and the level of cooperation that's going on between the city and the school. It's a trial basis because it's brand new, and some things have gone really well, and some things will get better. We have a signed contract. We want to renew it for another year, just make sure things are going well, and we don't have to focus on long-range changes and all. Just keep it in place for a while and focus on long-range things. A year from now, when the school district is not as focused on finding a new superintendent and a few of the financial challenges they see ahead. We talked some about diversity. We talked some about housing. One of the things that Superintendent Olson mentioned, he was superintendent here, of course, for a number of years, then left for 5 years and worked for the School Board Association, traveling around the state. And he said that, in those 5 years, I'm sure I visited 60 different school districts in the state. And in all of them, I talked about the kind of cooperative ventures that go on in St. Peter between the city and the school district. And the response everywhere was, well, that'd never work here. Well, we couldn't do that. Well, our city would never cooperate that way. It is incredible what we have here for the last 20 years. There are so many things going on that those of us in the room don't even know all the things that are going on. It's gotten to the point it has such momentum that at the school board candidates forum, 3 different candidates specifically said, and we have to continue cooperating with the city. So these sorts of meetings are wonderful. They benefit the community tremendously, and they're very unusual.
Good takeaway. Do you have anything more to add on that one?
No, I think John covered the salient topics for sure.
Did. Thank you, John.
Next item that I have here is City-County Committee meeting discussion. John's on that liaison committee as well, and so this is a committee that meets every 6 to 8 weeks. It depends a little bit on schedule. The schedule is set up at the meeting for the next meeting. And so, John, I don't know, I'd defer to you too if you want to talk about anything that was of interest to you at that meeting.
Well, I pass out to the council members the minutes of the meeting, what we talk about. We talk about the same topics, it seems, all the time. There are issues that are ongoing. Highway 22 is going to happen on the north edge of town where the state wants to turn it back to the county. The Sunrise Broadway intersection, the intersection with Sunrise and Highway 22 by the hospital, Township Road 361 out by the new high school. These are all issues that haven't been solved yet. Library funding comes up continuously. We think that we should see an increase occasionally in the level of support that comes from the county. The county says, well, we have a fixed amount, and we give that same fixed amount every year, and it seems to be fine with us. If you think there are county residents using it, figure out how many there are, and then maybe we'll talk about giving you more. And so we are working on that. There's water that comes into the city from the west, from drainage ditches, and flows down particularly by the high school and then towards Traverse Green and out that direction and across fields that are still being farmed. We have a project going on, working with the Soil and Water Conservation District in the county and such. And the county is, well, yeah, it's not our water, it belongs to the farmers, and we'll work with the Soil and Water Conservation to help you, but we're not going to give you any money or anything, it's just your problem. We have these all over the county flowing into the river. But, we have a refuse issue. We have a recycling plant in North Mankato that the county spent $200,000 a year for 20 years, $4 million, of which, I don't know, 15% came from the city of St. Peter. That's our level of contribution to the county taxes, so we put in $600,000 for the benefit of North Mankato. And now the contract is up, but North Mankato doesn't want the county there anymore, so the county, starting January 1st, has to find somewhere for their recyclings, and they're having the same difficulty we are. And we said, well, you know, we put $600,000 in, plus the maintenance another $100,000. We put $750,000 into this over the last 20 or 30 years. We could use some help. Well, we appreciate you're having difficulties, but no, not really. That's all. We have a fire hall we're putting up at the corner of Broadway and Sunrise, and we would like the exit for the fire station to go onto Broadway. It's a bigger street. It gets our access out into the county, into the townships faster, where we have responsibilities, plus downtown, rather than going out onto Sunrise and then trying to go around the intersection. MnDOT has warrants, has restrictions on how close you can be to an intersection for driveways and such, and we're going, well, this isn't a driveway. It's every 5 days or so, trucks go out with sirens and big lights and stoplights and all that sort of stuff. It's not, well, no, that's what MnDOT says. We wouldn't allow access onto our street there from that. We have senior services that we used to contract with the county. Now the county's given that up. They use Vine, and we would like to coordinate with county residents, and the county is going, well, yeah, if you want to help county residents, that's fine. Talk to Vine, work something out. They are, we talked about diversity. Every governmental unit talks about diversity these days. It's something that's changing in our community. And the city and the school district are doing great things, or taking action, doing things. The county says, well, yeah, if you have some training, we'd like to participate and we'd like to piggyback. We won't take any initiative, but we would piggyback on what you do. And then the meeting ended, and we'll have another meeting in January. And whoever's on the committee, because it won't be me, can go over all these topics again. And that's my report.
My question on the fire hall exit is that, do we need to go to MnDOT and talk to them, or or without the county's consent?
No, that would not yield any results. It is a county roadway.
Right.
I think what Councilmember Kwame is trying to express is that many engineers adhere very strictly to the uniform manual provided by DOT related to intersections, street widths, et cetera. And so they would prefer, they were very clear that they would not deviate from that. There would need to be some level of small deviation to provide for the exit of the fire hall onto Broadway. And they would have to entertain that, and they are not interested in entertaining that. Pete has worked with the county engineer with some success. I've worked with the county administrator with very, very limited success, and this was a discussion where two county commissioners, your local county commissioners, were present and said very clearly they could not support a deviation from the recommendation that is currently in place from the county engineer. So that effectively means that exits would be allowed, entrance and exit to that site would be allowed on Sunrise, which will work.
Right. My question is, does the safety, I mean, I know there's a safety, but I mean, safety
Yeah.
for residents, in a fire situation or emergency, does that not come into play at all?
I can't speak to all of the thoughts that the county has on that, but I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, that an entry and exit on Sunrise will work very, very
No,
well for city
I
residents.
realize that. That's
For
why it
city,
is.
let me,
Yeah.
for city residents, it will provide some small delay in going west
Right.
out into the county.
Okay. Okay.
So
All
the
right.
county's willing to accept that risk for their residents?
Again, I can't speak to what all their thoughts are. I can just tell you and report, as John did, that they are not interested in deviating from the rules that they see in place currently.
Okay, all right. Next up, Todd, you have on your list leaf pickup. John, you want to take that one too?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Pete on that one. As you know, the fall leaf pickup season is always a challenge because it never works out the same in any 2 years in a row. So Pete, if you would, give us just a little update where we're at with leaf collection.
This year's no different. It's been a very wet fall, and so the trees are still green to some respect. We did start on October 28th with leaf pickup. Usually what we do is we do half the town, starting at Broadway, north and south.
And we alternate,
And we
start and
alternate,
finish.
so it's equal. And this year, the first week, we kind of went all over town, trying to get whatever was down in piles and go from there. This week, we are back on the north end. We're going to spend 2 weeks in the north end, then we're going to go down to the south end and do 2 weeks down there, and then we'll spend the last few days before Thanksgiving picking up whatever's left over. So what I encourage people to do is keep bringing them to the curb, and we'll get there. Be patient with us. There's going to be a lot of leaves that come down in the next couple of weeks. So guys are working hard. They're out there.
Yeah.
And certainly folks can use the compost facility that's located on
Absolutely.
St. Julian and Swift, but we'd love to come around and help pick up, so work with us.
Yep.
Yeah. I notice on the south end now too, there are some pretty big furrows of, of leaves.
And just one other point that I'd like to make for folks is that we want the leaves on the grass area,
These are-
on the house side of the curb, not on the street, but on the grass on the boulevard, not on the street.
And don't park in front of the leaf piles.
Yeah,
Or
'cause we
they'll
can't
be
get
there
to
when
it
you
then.
come home.
Yeah.
Can't reach around them.
Anything else on leaves? Todd?
No, Mr. Mayor, that's all we have on leaf collection.
All right.
But watch Facebook and watch the hot sheet and watch all those places, so as, the weather changes and things happen, we were trying to provide updates on a regular basis there.
If we get a weather change, that's when I start getting calls on this.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, as far as snow or anything like that.
yeah, we cover as much territory as quickly as we
In
can.
charge of the weather.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Weatherman.
yeah, well, that's from past experience. That's the only time I've gotten them is when the snow starts falling.
And
Yeah.
it will
Leaves
happen
are
this
still
year,
sitting out
no
here.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Last one that I have, Mr. Mayor, is just an update on the hospital CEO process. As you may recall, Mayor and members, we did send you an email that had some important date on there, so please watch for that. The committee that's been assigned to review applications has started that process, and so we're about halfway through. And so, again, watch for more information. We're really excited about the process. And so far, we have a number of very qualified candidates that will move forward. I'm not sure how many candidates we'll have exactly to be interviewing. That is still yet to be determined. As we get through the rest of the applications, we'll know more. But certainly, we need your participation there in that third week of November as we do interviews for this really important job within our community.
Right.
Mayor members, that's all I have for
All
you.
right. Anybody else have anything they would like to share or add? Barb says we're supposed to remind everybody to vote. November 5th, Tuesday. What do we got? 8 days, right? Yeah, 8 days. So if you're watching this, November 5th. The other thing was, and Todd and I just briefly talked, it seemed like the Halloween
Oh, yeah.
ride, scary ride, whatever they're calling it. I
Haunted
forgot.
hayride?
Haunted hayride, thank you.
At the Mill Pond?
Had nice weather, looked very successful, from what I saw and heard. So I know they put a lot of work into that, so, anyway, thanks for those guys for doing that, or everybody. Anyone else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks for support. Appreciate it.
Well, John, based on your report,